What if the woman he stopped to save was the one thing that could finally make a drifter stay? The dust rose in slow, curling spirals beneath Colt Mercer's bay mare as he followed the rutted wagon trail through the lonely Wyoming territory. August of 1889 painted the world in colors of rust and fire. He had been riding 3 days straight from Cheyenne with nothing but half-empty saddlebags and memories he never managed to outrun. The late sun cast long shadows across the sagebrush-dotted plains, turning the land into an ocean of gold that felt both beautiful and dangerous. Colt adjusted his weathered Stetson against the glare. His gray eyes scanned the horizon with the caution of a man who had learned to read danger in small details. At 32, he carried himself with the ease of someone born in the saddle, though he still favored his left shoulder. Old wounds liked to whisper when storms were near. He planned to push on to the next settlement before nightfall, but something ahead made him pull Bell to a stop. A wagon sat half-tilted beside the trail. One wheel broken, no horses, no oxen, no tracks leading away. Just a lonely wagon sitting like a ship run aground in a sea of dust and sage. "Easy, Bell," he murmured, but the mare still tossed her head, uneasy with the silence. Colt's hand moved to the Colt, 45 at his hip. Too many ambushes had taught him to be cautious. He approached slow. Then a figure stepped out from behind the wagon. A woman. She stood straight as a fence post, her emerald traveling dress catching the dying sunlight. Her auburn hair had broken loose from what must have been a detailed Eastern arrangement, glowing like copper fire in the open air. In her hand was a tiny derringer, aimed right at him, steady despite the tremor in her jaw. "That's close enough, mister," she warned. Her voice held the sharp edge of fear buried under Eastern polish. "State your business, or move along." Colt lifted both hands, palms out. "No harm meant, ma'am." Saw the wagon, thought someone might need help. Her eyes, violet, deep and striking, studied him, his trail-worn clothes, the tied-down holster, the sun-beaten skin, and the look of a man who'd lived too many lives already. Whatever she saw made her lower the gun an inch, but not more. "Help?" she repeated softly. A hollow laugh escaped her. "Unless you can fix time or pull horses from thin air, I doubt you can offer the help I need." Colt swung down slowly from Bell. Up close, he saw tear tracks across her cheeks, wiped away in a hurry. Her dress, though dusty, was fine silk. She was money. Eastern money. Out here alone. Everything about her screamed out of place, except for the iron in her spine. "Name's Colt Mercer," he said gently. "Mind telling me what happened?" She hesitated, then seemed to release a breath she'd been holding for miles. "Rosalyn Carter, formerly of Philadelphia." Then, almost bitterly, "I suppose not even that anymore." She lowered the derringer fully. "I was supposed to meet my intended at the Sutton Ranch. We exchanged letters for months. He sent money for my passage. Promised." She swallowed hard. "Promised many things." Colt saw the torn envelope near the broken wheel, pages from a letter scattered in the dust. He'd seen this story before. Eastern women promised diamonds and love, only to be left with dust and lies. "What happened?" he asked. "He took the horses, said he made better arrangements, more profitable ones." Her jaw tightened. "So he left me with a broken wheel and no way back. I spent everything getting here." The sinking sun painted her face in warm gold and long shadow. She should have been crying, screaming, something, but she stood steady, refusing to fall apart. Colt respected that more than he wanted to admit. "You got people back east?" he asked. "Dead, all of them." She looked away, blinking fast. "None of it matters anymore." Colt scanned the open land in every direction. Night would fall soon. Coyotes were the least of the dangers waiting for a lone woman. Men with bad intentions roamed these plains too. "I've got a place 10 miles north," he said slowly. "A cabin and some outbuildings. I'm running cattle through the winter. Nothing fancy, but safe. You could stay a while. Work for your keep if that feels better." Quote. Her eyes sharpened with fire. "I won't be any man's kept woman." "Didn't say you would be." Colt kept his tone calm. "Got a separate bunkhouse." Plenty of work if you want it. Can you cook? I can learn. Ranch work? I can learn that too. Her determination tugged at something buried deep inside him, something he thought long dead. He almost smiled. It's hard living out here, he warned. Nothing like Philadelphia. Philadelphia didn't want me, she said quietly. My intended didn't want me. Hard living is still living. Colt looked into those violet eyes and saw something he knew too well, a soul trying not to break. Get what you need from the wagon, he said at last. We'll ride double. I'll bring a buckboard tomorrow for the rest. Her composure cracked, just slightly. You'd do that for a stranger? Wouldn't be right leaving you here. He turned away, uncomfortable with the gratitude shining in her eyes. Besides, he added gruffly, winter's coming. Could use an extra pair of hands. Quote. She gathered her things, a carpet bag, a small trunk, and a wooden box she held like treasure. Colt noticed she walked careful, like someone learning new ground. What kind of man takes in a stranger without asking about her past? She asked quietly. The kind who's got his own past he'd rather not discuss. Rosalyn nodded with a knowing sadness. They mounted Belle together. She settled behind him, awkward, arms around his waist. Her touch was light, hesitant, but real. He felt every heartbeat of hers against his back as they rode into the falling night. She smelled of lavender and dust. A strange, compelling mix. Tell me about this ranch of yours, she said softly. Not much to tell, he replied. Just a place to stay till spring. You always move on? She asked. Always. Must be lonely. He shrugged. Lonely ain't the worst thing a man can be. She fell quiet, thinking on that. The stars came out bright as diamonds. Coyotes sang in the distance. Rosalyn's arms tightened around him for a moment. They won't bother us, Colt said gently. And if they did? Quote. He tapped the rifle in its scabbard. They'd regret it. She relaxed against him. They rode until the cabin appeared as a dark shape against the starlight. Not big, not pretty, but sturdy. Home, Colt said quietly, such as it is. He helped her down. She swayed, unused to so much riding. Thank you, she whispered. For all of this. Wouldn't be right, leaving you out there. He opened the door, lit the lantern, and stood awkwardly. I'll sleep in the barn tonight. We'll figure out something else tomorrow. You're giving up your bed for me, she said softly. You're giving me company I haven't had in years, he replied. Fair trade. Rosalyn studied him in the warm lamplight. You're not what I expected to find out here. What'd you expect? Not kindness. The simple words hit him deeper than he liked. There's beans if you're hungry, he said quietly. I'll see to the horses. He reached the door when her voice stopped him. Mr. Mercer, do you believe in second chances? Colt paused, looked back at her. The lantern glow turned her eyes into soft pools of violet. I reckon, he said slowly, if we didn't believe in second chances, there wouldn't be much point in waking up each morning. She smiled then, a small, genuine smile. Then maybe we both came to the right place. Colt stepped into the night, heart unsettled for the first time in years. The wind carried the scent of sage and distant rain. Change was coming. And her name was Rosalyn Carter. The morning sun crept across the rough plank floor like a slow-moving blessing, warming the small cabin inch by inch. Rosalyn opened her eyes to the strange sounds of her new life, the lowing of cattle, the whir of the windmill, the steady rhythm of chores already underway outside. She sat up slowly, every muscle aching from yesterday's ride, but something about that ache felt honest, earned, real. Through the window, she saw Colt working a young horse in the corral. He moved with steady confidence, every gesture calm and sure. He was a man shaped by the land he lived on, worn, strong, and quietly determined. For a moment, she simply watched him. A stranger had rescued her. But he didn't feel like a stranger anymore. She stepped outside, pulling her shawl tighter. The morning air was crisp, with the scent of sage and dust. Colt didn't turn when he called out, "Coffee's on the fire. Help yourself." She poured a cup from the battered pot and nearly coughed on the first sip. It was strong enough to wake the dead. Too strong. Colt appeared at her side like a ghost, spurs silent, hat pushed back slightly. "Coffee out here doesn't come with frills," he said dryly. "I'll adjust," Rosalyn said, lifting her chin. That earned the smallest twitch at the corner of his mouth. "There's a lot to adjust to," Colt said. "Can you do it?" Quote, "I told you yesterday I can learn." "Learning and doing aren't the same," he replied calmly. "Can you milk a cow?" "No." "Gather eggs?" "No." "Start a fire? Haul water? Mend a fence?" "No, no." "And still, no." She set the cup down with exaggerated care. "Perhaps instead of testing me, Mr. Mercer, you should start teaching." This time, his smile was clear. "Fair enough. Let's start with breakfast." He showed her how to cook with cast iron, how to judge fire heat, how to mix biscuit dough without making it tough. Her first batch came out flat as stones. "Well," Colt said diplomatically, "the chickens will eat well." By the third batch, she had actual biscuits. They sat at a rough table outside, eating in companionable silence. Something about sharing a meal under the wide Wyoming sky felt grounding. Real. "After breakfast, we'll fetch your things," Colt said. "Then you'll need proper clothes. Can't work in silk. I have a few plainer things." "Plain for Philadelphia ain't plain for Wyoming," he said, nodding to his own worn dungarees. When they reached the wagon, Rosalyn took a long breath. In daylight, it looked even more abandoned, even more hopeless. But with Colt beside her, the fear she'd felt yesterday didn't stir. He patched the wheel enough to pull the wagon back to the cabin. Among her belongings, she found items from her old life: her mother's tea set, a stack of books, her father's medical notes. Strange treasures for a place like this. "You read a lot," Colt noted. "It was my escape," she said softly. "Nothing wrong with that. Winter nights get long out here. Good to have stories." He didn't say more, but the simple admission, he read, felt like another brick placed in the slow-building bridge between them. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. That afternoon, Rosalyn learned what ranch life truly meant. Chickens pecked at her skirt. Buttercup the milk cow nearly kicked her pail over. A rooster declared war on her ankles. "You're fighting them," Colt said calmly. "Relax. Find the rhythm." "I do not believe there is a rhythm to being attacked by poultry." "There is. You just don't hear it yet." Despite herself, she laughed. By dinner, her hands were sore, her dress was dusty, her back ached, and she felt strangely proud. She was doing something. Building something. Surviving. That night, as she darned a sock by lamplight, she said, "You never asked." "Asked what?" "Why I came west." Colt didn't look up from the harness he was mending. "Figure it's your business." "My father died last year. My aunt wanted me to marry her business partner, a man older than my father. When I refused, she swallowed hard. I was no longer welcome." Colt worked in silence for a moment. "And the man who brought you west?" "He sold my future when something richer walked by. He found a better dowry, I suppose." Colt's jaw tightened. A man who abandons a woman on the trail ain't worth the dust on your boots. She didn't expect the fierce protectiveness in his voice, or how it warmed her. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. That night she couldn't sleep. She stepped outside, wrapped in her shawl. Colt sat on the porch, harmonica in hand, staring up at the stars. "Clear nights like this," he murmured, "make a man think too much." "You were in the military," she said gently. "7th Cavalry," he said. "Long time ago." She didn't press. The silence settled like a blanket. "Do you ever regret coming west?" she asked. "Can't regret something that kept me alive." She smiled faintly. "Ask me again in a month," she said. That earned a soft laugh from him. He lifted the harmonica. "Mind if I play?" "Please." Quote. The melody was gentle, like a breath of memory drifting across the land. Rosalyn closed her eyes. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt peace. When he finished, the quiet between them felt warm. "Colt," she said softly, "you're a good man." He shook his head. "Not sure I've earned that." "You have," she whispered. When she stood to go inside, he rose as well. A small courtesy, but it hit her chest with unexpected force. "Good night, Mr. Mercer." "Good night, Miss Carter." Inside the cabin, she pressed her hand against her chest. Something was changing, something neither of them could name yet. But she felt it. And from the porch, as the harmonica began again, she knew Colt did too. The weeks that followed shaped their lives in ways neither could have foretold. The days were long and full of hard work, but each sunrise held something steady and hopeful. Rosalyn found herself growing stronger, more capable, more sure-footed on this land that had once frightened her. And Colt, he was changing too, though he tried to hide it. He lingered longer at breakfast, softened around the edges, and watched Rosalyn in quiet moments when he thought she didn't notice. But trouble had a way of stirring dust in Wyoming, and trouble had a name. Ezekiel Thorne. He arrived one blistering afternoon with 4 riders at his back, all armed. The drought had tightened its grip on the land, and water was worth more than gold. Colt and Rosalyn were driving cattle toward the north pasture when Thorne's men appeared, blocking their path. "Well now," Ezekiel called, tipping his hat with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Mercer, nice to see you working like a true ranch wife, or is it Miss Carter? Hard to tell these days." Rosalyn kept her chin high. "What do you want?" "Water," he said easily. "That reservoir is awful full for just 2 people. Seems only neighborly to share." Colt's jaw tightened. "You're trespassing, Thorne." "Hate that word," Ezekiel drawled. "Sounds so legal." One of his men dismounted, walking toward the barn. "Stop," Colt warned. But the man kept moving. A moment later, he came back out holding something. A running iron. The kind rustlers used to change brands. "Well now," Ezekiel said with false sympathy, "this doesn't look good for you, Mercer. Sheriff might think you're branding stolen cattle." "You planted that," Colt snapped. "Prove it." The air turned tense as a stretched wire. Rosalyn's heart slammed in her chest, but she refused to stand silent. She nudged her horse forward, putting herself between Colt and the men. "Mr. Thorne," she said clearly, "you and your men will leave this property now." Ezekiel's smile sharpened. "Or what?" Rosalyn didn't hesitate. She lifted Colt's shotgun, something she had never fired until this moment, and aimed it at the dirt in front of his lead rider, and fired. The blast cracked like thunder. The horse reared, dust flying. "That was a warning," she said, voice steady despite her pounding heart. "The next shot won't be." For the first time, Ezekiel faltered. The men shifted nervously. "This isn't over," Ezekiel hissed. "You've made a powerful enemy today." Quote. Colt stepped beside her, rifle in hand. "You heard the lady! Get off our land!" Thorne glared at both of them, then jerked his reins. The men turned and rode away, swallowed by dust. Rosalyn lowered the shotgun, shaking, breath coming fast. "You could have been killed," Colt said roughly, grabbing her shoulders. "And so could you," she shot back. "I won't stand by and watch you be framed." He stared at her for a long moment, anger, fear, and something deeper flickering in his eyes. Then he pulled her into his chest, holding her like he feared the world might steal her away. That night, everything changed. The storm rolled in fast, green-black clouds twisting in unnatural shapes. By sundown, wind slammed against the cabin with the force of fists. Trees bent. The barn shook. Rain fell sideways. Inside, Colt and Rosalyn huddled together as the storm screamed outside, breaking windows and ripping shingles from the roof. A branch crashed through the porch. The lantern flickered out. "Stay behind me," Colt said, shielding her as glass shattered. But the storm wasn't their worst threat. Through the howling wind came the sound of hooves, many of them. Ezekiel, Thorne, and 6 riders. "Checking on our neighbors!" Ezekiel shouted over the wind. Heard storm damage might have caused trouble. Colt stepped out, gun drawn, soaked instantly. "You're not welcome here, Thorn." "We're just looking around," Ezekiel sneered. One of his men headed for the barn. "I said stop," Colt warned. The rider ignored him. Rosalyn's fears snapped. She grabbed the shotgun again and stepped out onto the porch. "Do not take one more step," she shouted. She chambered another shell. Ezekiel laughed. "Look at you, playing frontier wife." His man moved forward anyway. Rosalyn fired. This time she hit the ground so close the rocks jumped. The horses panicked. Men cursed. "You're insane!" Ezekiel roared. "No," she said, leveling the barrel at his chest. "I'm defending my home. Leave." The wind tore at them. Lightning cracked overhead. Ezekiel stared at her, fury glowing hot, but he knew she wouldn't miss again. "Mount up," he snapped. "This isn't finished." Quote. When they were gone, Rosalyn's legs gave out. Colt caught her, pulling her inside. "You're the bravest woman I've ever met," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I just did what needed to be done." He cupped her face gently. "You saved my life today." Their breath mingled. The storm battered the world around them, but inside it felt strangely quiet. "Colt," she whispered, "we're more than strangers now." He rested his forehead against hers. "I know. God help me, I know." He kissed her, soft at first, then with a depth that stole her breath and steadied her soul at the same time. It felt like the answer to a question they had both been asking since the moment they met. "This changes everything," he murmured. "Everything has been changing," she said. "We just finally stopped pretending." But morning brought pain. Colt saddled Belle at dawn, planning to ride into town with Sam Henderson to speak with the sheriff. Rosalyn watched him go with unease twisting in her stomach. Hours passed. Then, hooves thundered toward the cabin. Sam Henderson appeared pale and shaking, leading Belle and Colt. He was tied over the saddle, blood staining his shirt. "Ambush," Sam gasped, helping her get him inside. "Thorn's men shot him and left him." Rosalyn's world narrowed to the wounded man she loved. She worked with shaking hands, doing everything her doctor father taught her, stopping the bleeding, binding wounds, forcing water between Colt's lips. The doctor arrived, removed the bullet, and warned them the next hours were critical. Rosalyn kept vigil through the night, holding Colt's hand, refusing to let him drift away. "I thought I lost you," she whispered when his eyes finally fluttered open. He managed a weak smile. "Takes more than a bullet to stop me." Then, breath shallow, "Wanted to show you the meadow, wanted to propose there." "You will," she said fiercely, "but you have to stay with me." When the fever broke at dawn, she nearly collapsed in relief. He recovered slowly, but each day he grew stronger. And when he finally stood steady on his feet again, he asked her to go on that ride. The meadow took her breath away. Flowers in every color, a creek whispering through the grass, hills sheltering the quiet space. "This," Colt said softly, "is where I want to marry you." Tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. The wedding was simple, beautiful, and full of people who had come to respect them both. Rosalyn wore a dress sewn in love by neighbor women. Colt wore his best shirt, cleaned and pressed. When they exchanged vows, Colt's voice shook. "You made me believe I could be better than my past," he said. "You're my home, Rosalyn." "And you're my future," she answered. Their kiss was met with cheers that rolled through the meadow like music. Filled, circle, filled, circle, filled, circle. Weeks later, as winter crept in, they stood together outside their cabin, their land, their home, their life, watching frost settle across the plains. Colt wrapped an arm around her. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. "Not one," Rosalyn whispered. "This is my home. You're my home." The drifter had found his reason to stay. The abandoned bride had found her place to belong. And their nights, from that day forward, echoed with each other's touch, warm and certain against the cold Wyoming wind.